I am going to give a quick introduction and setting the scene for our presentation. And so our starting point, there is a really nice quote by Leonardo da Vinci: "In time and with water, everything changes." And I think this summarizes quite nicely our idea and our project, and we're going to get back to that eventually. So get to know our target group first. So our target group are secondary school students, meaning they are 16 to 18 years old. And well, they're living in the current times, which means there are global crises and threats, and they are just growing up in uncertainty, which means that the future to many students seems more of a source of anxiety than of excitement. And a lot of students feel marginalized and excluded. So our goal with this project and with the exhibition that we have designed for the Visualiseringscenter is to raise students' capacity to act as agents of change in our society. Why? Well, we live in the current world we're living in. So there's rapid change and massive uncertainty, and a lot of people and a lot of young people and students just perceive their education as not relevant to their futures at all. And taking our point of departure in the Swedish curriculum, there we find some overarching curriculum goals, and one of them is that the school is responsible for ensuring that each pupil, when completing compulsory school, has obtained knowledge about and an understanding of the importance of the individual's own lifestyle and its impact on health, the environment, and society. So you can read its knowledge and understanding about the importance, blah, blah, blah. The next goal is that each pupil has obtained knowledge about the prerequisites for a good environment and sustainable development. Again, it's knowledge about sustainability. Well, we want to go one step further. Our goal is to prepare, or going from preparing for the future to future making, helping students aspire to develop their true potential and make a positive change in the world, and going from knowledge to action, because knowledge is only useful if you act on it and use it in the world. So what have we designed? An immersive experience at the Visualiseringscenter. It is one big exhibition that consists of 3 parts. We have a touch table part, a video installation, or several video installations as part of the whole, and a dome experience. And the rest of the group will walk you through the exhibit as if you were directly there, being a student with your other students on a classroom or on a school excursion. And you will see that each of the different environments is used in line with the different immersive features that it affords. And how are we structuring the whole exhibition, and what is the design idea behind it? Well, we use water as a metaphor for time and for change. And we invite students to imagine different future scenarios and relate these scenarios to their present actions. And we are jumping right into the presentation, or the second part of the presentation. As you're being walked through the experience, just keep those 3 keywords in mind: water, time, and change, because each part of the exhibition will relate to these words slightly differently. And then at the end, we come back to the immersive features. I'm going to stop the presentation, and you will find yourself in the Visualiseringscenter.
Okay, so we have just entered the 4th floor of the Visualization Center. And for those of you who have not been there yet, this is a large exhibition area before you can enter the dome, which is on the door is on the opposite side of this room. And what you see here in front of you is 2 large tunnels, large enough to walk through, and a spiral shape in between these tunnels, and surrounded by touch tables. And if you listen carefully now, you will hear the sound of running water. And that is the sound coming from the flow of water throughout this whole installation. And looking at this spiral shape in between, It's actually a water channel leading water from the ceiling down to the floor and connected with water channels in the floor running on the underneath the floor that we're walking upon. And we also have water curtains covering the tunnels to create this immersive experience of the flow of water. And if we look up to above the spiral, so the starting point of this water spiral, we have a sign saying deformation of the earth. And this whole spiral corresponds to the entire history of the earth. Each unit of length corresponds to one unit of time. And surrounding the spiral, we have ways to explore different time periods on these touch tables. And the last round of the spiral corresponds to the last 600 million years of the Earth's history. So now, if we follow the flow of water and time and move to the other side of the spiral, I will hand it over to Jörgen.
Thank you very much, Signe. So you can see while we're passing these different touch tables, there are different spots in time or points in time, which corresponds to where certain resources are being formed, for example, oil or coal or limestone. And we will now reach the present, and it's right here. So we can have a look here at this particular touch table, this interface, which could be considered to be the main interface, since this is one of the main ideas here. And as you can see, present time is here represented with the red streak or in the middle of the image. And as you can see, there's the face facing backwards, upstream, so to speak, towards the past. And on the other side, there's the unknown, uncertain future. And I will now say a few words about how the interaction works. One of the main ideas here is to illuminate the difference between consumption and formation of different resources like coal, oil, limestone, gas, or it could be other kinds of resources as well. So we compare the time, human lifetime, or close to Anthropocene, which is another concept here, and the consumption done of these resources during the last 100 years, and that would correspond roughly to the red streak there, which you can see. So the table encourages us to make predictions about how long time did it take to form the resources we have used during these 100 years. So you could, for example, concentrate on, say, limestone or oil or something, and then you will guess where was that form in time, in this deep time spiral. So you could just click and then on, for example, limestone, and then it will light up some period. And then you could see, for example, that, say, limestone, for example, the limestone we have consumed with corresponding emissions of carbon dioxide actually corresponds to, say, a much longer period, say 10 or 50 or 100 million years. That is the corresponding time which we have consumed during the last 100 years with the corresponding emissions of carbon dioxide. So, and that could be done also with other resources like oil and gas and so on. And just before we leave this part and enter the video installation, to the left, you see the water exits the deep time spiral to a more open and as the keynote speaker talked about, uncertain future, which is dependent upon our decisions and actions. But for now, let's stick to the present, and I'll hand over to Maxi to show the video installation.
Thank you, Jörgen. Yes, so we've heard now a lot about the deep time spiral, and now we want to have a look at how to see time in things, which we want to explore in these tunnels that are surrounding the spiral. So when we walk in there, you see that we enter a video installation where you find pairs of videos opposite to each other. So here we see an example on the right. You see a slow motion video of how fast we are mining limestone, and on the opposite side, on the left, you see a time-lapse video of how long it takes that limestone is formed in the Earth's crust. An indication to these different time spans that we are comparing here, you can find on the floors where it says the actual number of the time span. And as you walk through these tunnels, you can get a feel about how different time can be perceived differently, and how we are using things very fast now that took very long to form. So here, for example, there is another example about wood. So on the left, you would see the time lapse video of how long it takes until the tree is grown, and on the opposite side, the slow motion about how fast we are actually cutting it down to use it. And when we walk further, we can just follow. You see again in the floor, there's the water channel, the flow of time that guides you through the whole installation. And we see more examples. And as mentioned before, the outside of these tunnels are covered in a water curtain as an image for the flow of time, and also to create a very nice soundscape accompanying this rather aesthetic experience in the tunnels. Here, the last example is about water and clean water. So on the left, you see that it takes quite long to filter the water to make it clean. And on the right side, the shower, where you use it very fast. And when we now come back to where we started, we are back again at where the channel in the floor, which is guiding you through the whole experience, is changing the shape, as Jörgen mentioned, and it's forming this delta landscape. And all of this directs to the left from here to the stairs, because this is where the fulldome theater is located. And as you follow here into the future, you can experience one possible future. We don't know where the future is going, but we can imagine one possible future. And this is what we are doing in this fulldome experience. So we are imagining the future where the human race decided not to eat any animal products anymore. And we're exploring how this world could look like.
Verkehrschaos in Berlin. Eine Herde mit über 700 Kühen bewegt sich im Moment auf das Südkreuz Berlin zu. Es handelt sich um Tiere, die von den Brandenburger Bauern gestern freigelassen worden sind. Die Bundespolizei befürchtet ein Verkehrschaos.
Politiska ledare, experter och forskare från 156 länder träffas i Stockholm kommande helg. Inför de globala utmaningarna som världen står inför går alla länder samman.
London stinks. The canalization of the British capital struggles to cope with the deluge of milk in the sewage.
The greatest mystery of human life took place in October 2022, the all-time famous week 4222, when the big change took its course and the human race decided to stop eating so-called animal products.
Today we can't imagine a world where we would eat our animal roomies or drink the milk of cow mothers. But most of us consume so-called animal products in all kinds of forms and variations. But all this ended abruptly in week 42 in 2022, a week for the history books.
Animals that formerly were kept on farms to be milked or slaughtered got absorbed into newly emerging ecosystems surrounding the cities. It was an eco-biological transformation of global dimension.
In the years before the big change, 80% of the world's fish stocks were in a state of collapse. When humanity stopped hunting for fish, scientists became witnesses of a fantastic recovery. It took less than a generation for marine life to bounce back to its former glory.
About week 42-22, an immersive full-dome journey featuring unpublished material from the time when our world changed for good. In full-dome theatres from 15th July 2072.
Wonderful. So we are back, and I think we have 2 minutes left. So our starting point is also our ending point in time, and with water, everything changes. And I think we are just asking you to discuss with us how did we make use of the different visualization environments. So you can see that we had those three: the dome, the touch tables, and the video installation in the tunnels, and each takes up or addresses water, time, and change differently. So I think we just open the floor for discussion.
Yes, thank you very, very much. Impressive work and an impressive presentation, obviously. I just like to second what you said. If you have any comments or questions, or yeah, there is a topic that has been bubbling a little bit in the chat during your presentation. It has to do with the direction of time from left to right or from right to left. Is that something you can comment on? There seemed to be a little bit of uncertainty on how to interpret your presentation from that point of view.
That's, shall I answer, or Signe, do you want
Jörgen,
to?
go ahead.
You could also add if there's something. It's we've tried not to be very conventional and not very Western or oriented. I know this is definitely an issue, how you experience time. If it's linear or not at all, and this is not just between cultures, it's also between different genres of academia, I would say. I mean, if you look at some of the humanities, look very differently at time compared to physics, and also within physics, there are different views of time. But doing it as a spiral, that was one attempt to escape at least partly this very linear part, though it's still linear, of course, but it's not a straight line at least. And actually, we didn't decide if it was counterclockwise or clockwise. We had it one way first, and then it just happened to reverse for some reason. So there was no particular thought. It was just that it is kind of, in a sense, it's unidirectional, whether it is clockwise or counterclockwise. But it is, to my mind, at least some kind of directionality. I mean, we're born and we die, and that's more or less, as we know it, irreversible. That would be my comment on it. I don't know. Do you want to complement some of your other, maybe?
No, I was just about to say a similar thing, and also regarding the actual touch table, the present touch table, or the touch table that actually shows the now. With the two faces that you saw. I mean, yeah, maybe that could be a good idea, since we are directing it to students that might be more used to from left to right. Maybe it would be a good idea, but then we need to turn the whole spiral, because now we want the time on the touch table to be aligned with the time on the water spiral. So yeah.
Some really good follow-ups here in the chat as well. I'm going to refer you to that. And I am also going to ask Cornelia to ask your question or comment.
It's more a comment. I just wanted to congratulate the group that they picked this topic, like, and use time as a metaphor. I mean, that's subjective, but a while ago I had the same idea, driven from the knowledge that, like, the doom and everything is kind of worn out, and that you need to approach the topic from a different perspective. And I just wanted to encourage that, because there are really a few extremely crucial facts about climate change that center around time. And one is, like, the lifetime of CO2, which is in average over 100 years, and which is one of the central reasons why climate scientists are so alert that we need to act, because it's like concrete in our atmosphere once it's there. And then the other is also related to the history of humankind and like the Holocene, which is not like it's 10,000 years, and it helped civilization to develop, because there's often this argument that like climate had changed ever since before. And yes, it has, but not in the duration of the Holocene, where the climate was really stable and where we could develop civilization, etc. And before we were basically living out in the cages, like if you want to exaggerate. And I think there, if you plan to pursue that, I think there are really a few more facts related to climate change that are super related also to time. And I find it very philosophical and still completely to the point. So congratulations.
Thank you, Cornelia. I'd like to ask the project team if you have any comments on that comment. Anything that comes to mind? Nothing?
I think maybe a very short comment. In the very beginning of our discussions, we were really all convinced that we want to create an experience that is nice and entertaining, while then also having the science in the background. But we chose something philosophical or metaphorical on purpose to create this really nice experience that is just nice for itself, even if you're not looking for the content specifically. And this is also why we integrated this video installation as a very aesthetic experience, or part of the experience that is not giving you all the facts, but is rather creating this experience that is unique but still connected to the topic.
I actually,
yeah, and maybe
sorry, go ahead.
Just quickly adding to what Maxi just said, it's really the water and the time and change. It speaks, or these are universal features of our experiences, and it's almost visceral. If you're going through this experience, you can learn something about the content, but as Maxi just said, like even if you have no interest in it, like you're going to be affected by it, because we all have this experience of time and change and water, and they are just intimately connected. And this is something like there are different levels or layers of the exhibit and how you can experience it.
Thanks. I wanted to ask a quick follow-up on the video installations. If I understand correctly, the main aim is to emphasize the difference between long formation times and short consumption times. And the way you chose to do that is simply to put them on opposing walls of a tunnel and just put the numbers on the floor. Did you consider other ways, spatially or visually, to more strongly emphasize the huge differences in timescales? Or is it something that you just didn't have time to work with?
I mean,
sorry.
No, go ahead, Signe.
No, I was just about to say that I think some idea, like quite in the early stages, that we had some ideas of physical boxes of height that could emphasize the different time scales. Although, I mean, for these examples that we have now, it would be really hard, since it's comparing 400 million years with 400 milliseconds. So I guess that could be hard, but yes, we did have, I think we did have some initial ideas.
That's why I'm asking the question, actually, because I felt it was almost impossible and I could not see for myself any reasonable way of doing it. So I thought I had to ask more clever young people. But, oh, sorry. Thanks anyway. Yes.
May I give a last comment just?
You may.
Thank you for your comments also, Cornelia, and I strongly agree with what you said. And so this is actually quite philosophical, and it's kind of stressing the time aspect of sustainability. It's a kind of an addition to the trying to add the some kind of time literacy, or trying to escape the very presentism we are actually living in right now, and trying to think more long-termistic. So that's my only kind of comments on the comments, but I appreciate your comment.
Yeah, I think we all commend your efforts in trying to go beyond presentism, but you could also argue that it's a very difficult task because it's very untested territory. So there are no like design idioms that you could just lean upon. You need to find some fairly primal techniques of making time, I suppose, tangible or experienceable in a moment in time, so to speak. This is super tricky, but I think you've done fantastic work. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to close this part of the session now. Yeah, Matthias is pointing out in the chat here the power of 10, which is of course the classical way of dealing with scales of space. You could imagine something like a power of 10 for time as well. Anyway, this could go on forever, but we don't have time for that. So I'm just going to close this part. Thank you all the students for your work. It seems clear to me that you have put your hearts into these projects, and the results are, to me anyway, remarkably good for such a small piece of coursework. So thank you so much for that.